Look at that. Holy mackerel. He's beautiful. What a beautiful trout. It just keeps going and going and going. Oh my God. Man. Giant. Giant.
You want to catch giant trout like this? Well, a lot of anglers try and they come up empty-handed. Today I'm going to show you my book of secrets of how I target trophy trout in the Indian River Lagoon. I'm going to show you where to fish, I'm going to show you which lures to fish, and I'm going to give you the tips on what to look for in your area to catch these trophy trout. So let's get into it. The Indian River Lagoon is a unique ecosystem, one of the most unique in the whole world. The Indian River Lagoon starts down in Stewart and runs 150 miles north to Titusville. And in that area, there's over 685 different species of fish that can be found. And today we're going to be talking about the trout, specifically the gator trout. And in the Indian River, it's known for having gator-sized trout. In fact, the world record sea trout was caught back in, I think it was 1995. It was a 17-pound, 7-ounce sea trout, and it was caught down in Fort Pierce near the inlet at a place they call Dynamite Point. So one of the best places to fish is from Fort Pierce north up until probably the Sebastian area. Once you get much north of there, there's not as many trout. And once you get south of there, there's not as many trout. Now these giant trout are ambush predators. In the early morning hours in the summer, they'll be crashing the mullet, and that's what you want to look for. You want to look for a school of mullet. You want to look for a school of mullet that's getting crashed by some kind of fish, either jacks, trout, snook, or a combination of all of the above. That's what you want to look for. Now after it gets hot, after the sun's been up, let's say a half hour or so, you're not going to have that much luck. The trout will kind of melt into the shadows and stop biting and just cool their jets till it gets dark again. Now, if you want to learn to read the lagoon's clues like a book, I'm going to try to teach you. I'm going to try to teach you what I've learned and what my book of knowledge is concerning catching these trophy trout. Chapter 1 of my book is going to be about the grass flat. Yes, you may have heard the grass flats are having a hard time, but I'm here to tell you they're coming back. The grass flats are coming back in the Vero, Sebastian, and Wabasso Beach areas. Lots of healthy grass, which is great for our sea trout population. There's a good population of resident sea trout, and I'm here to tell you that in the summertime, if you get out early enough and you get out there before the sun comes up, you can catch some of these giant gator-sized trout. Now, sometimes you want to target not just the grass flat, but the potholes within the grass flat. So if you know some areas that have potholes and that have some sandy spots in the middle of the grass, that's a good spot. That's a good spot to cast to, because there could be a trout, there could be a snook, there could be a redfish sitting in that pothole, waiting for those pilchards, pinfish, mullet, whatever, to swim by. And if you drag your lure through there, you have a good chance of catching one of those fish. The best trout flats and best grass flats are the ones that are shallow, because those big trout, they didn't get big by being stupid. They didn't get big by swimming around in front of flipper. You know, if the grass flat is 2 feet or less, that's where you're going to want to fish. While flipper may be able to get into 2 feet of water, flipper can't get up too much speed because the tail of a dolphin has to go up and down like that. And if it only has a 2-foot range, you know, it can't do much, and it can't get going too fast. So the big trout know this, the snook know this, and the redfish know this, and so they don't get out into that deep water. So look for a shallow water flats, and then you'll find the trout. Now you may find the smaller trout in the deeper water, and you may find hungry fish, you know, on occasion out deeper water. But if you want to focus on the big trophy trout, they're going to be the ones that aren't swimming in that deep water where flipper can swim in and eat them. So pay attention to that. Find the shallow water flats, and that course, that's going to change throughout the year, and that's going to change throughout the seasons where the flats are that gets deeper and shallower. So yeah, you're going to have to push up on those shallower flats you know, when the tide comes in and when you got a high tide. And then of course, when the lower tide comes in, you're going to want to fish further out. But yeah, try to focus on about a 2-foot depth or less for your sea trout. Now, of course, with fishing any area, if you see busting bait, you see bait getting busted by snook, tarpon, trout, whatever, you're going to want to cast over into that area. And specifically with trout, you're going to see a disturbance on the top of the water when they're actively feeding. And that's where you're going to want to make your next cast. Now, trout will move back and forth along the schools of mullet, and they'll ambush certain pods over here and then over there. So yeah, they're going to be moving back and forth on the flat, and you're going to want to keep casting in the area where you see some disturbances going on. You know, you're not going to want the disturbances by the birds flying over or the wakes coming from the boats and things like that. You're going to want to see the, you know, mullet going poof, flying straight up in the air like that. That means there's either a snook or there's a trout or maybe even a tarpon, you know, bust them from underneath. And if you see the bait going like that, they're being chased by a fast fish, probably jack or, you know, could be bluefish, you know, this time of year during the mullet run. But yeah, you're going to want to pay attention to wherever you see bait busting. You're going to want to get over there. You want to cast over there. And that's where you're going to probably get your next bite. May not be a giant sea trout, but, you know, that's where you want to cast, because it could be trout, jacks working together. It could be, you know, snook and trout working together. They all kind of work together and get these fish confused, and then they ambush them, you know, during all this confusion. So that's a good thing to look for. Look for busting baits. That's guaranteed. Now, chapter 1 was about the grass flats. Chapter 2 is about the islands. You're going to want to fish around the islands because, you know, islands, they get shallow when you get up to them, you know, on the banks of them. And trout like to use the islands as ambush points, and it's also a safety area for safety from dolphins and safety from getting eaten by dolphins. So yeah, spoil islands, you know, they're usually near the intercoastal, and they'll usually have current ripping around them when the tide's really running. And the trout like some current. So if they can have safety, and then they can have food in the form of bait fish, and they can have current, you know, that's a good place. And a spoil island is just that kind of place. You know, especially in the wintertime, you know, you're going to get your spoil islands, and you're going to get whatever bait there is left in the river. It's going to be probably around some spoil islands. So good place to fish is the spoil islands, especially in the wintertime. And in this video, you're going to see me fishing some spoil islands. And then you're also going to see me fishing some natural islands. Of course, the natural islands also, you know, are going to have current going by them. Certain ones will have certain baits coming through and current going by them. And those are the ones you want to fish. You don't want to fish the ones in the way back where there's not as much current. You want to fish the ones that are, you know, kind of close to the intercoastal and going to have some current going past them. And also, you're going to want to fish up close to them because, as I said before, the shallower water is hard for the dolphins to get up there and ambush these trout. You know, I've been seeing a lot of dolphins swimming around with a lot of mullet, and they're not attacking the mullet. They're wanting to get those snook and those trout and redfish. They're kind of, you know, honing in on these larger game fish that are attacking these mullet, and they're leaving the mullet alone. So yeah, you know, those dolphin are pretty smart, and the sea trout, to get big, they got to be smarter. So you're going to want to fish up in that shallower water, like I said before, 2 feet or less. We talked about chapter 1, the flats, chapter 2, the islands, chapter 3 is the oyster bars. Trout love oyster bars, as do redfish and snook. So you're going to want to target the oyster bars, especially in the winter when there's not as much bait around. Whatever bait is around is going to be around the oyster bars, and you want to concentrate on the oyster bars. You're going to want to especially concentrate on the oyster bars that have a little bit of current, the ones that are closer to the inlets, the ones that are closer to the intercoastal. You know, the oyster bars in the way back may not be as good as the ones that are closer to the intercoastal and the ones that are closer to the inlets. Always check out the oyster bars. You may get a consolation prize of a redfish or a snook, but hey, that's fishing. You never know what's going to bite next. Chapter 4 is about geography. You know, you're going to want to fish somewhere north of Jensen, maybe, you know, around the power plant on Hutchinson Island, but, you know, you're not going to want to fish really south of Jensen. There's really not much trout activity south of there that I'm aware of. I mean, maybe you know something I don't know. But yeah, the Fort Pierce, Vero Beach, Round Island, they all have lots of sea trout. And, you know, up as far as Wabasso is good. I fish there a lot. And Sebastian, north of Sebastian a little ways, you get some good sea trout in that area too. So the whole 150 miles of the Indian River Lagoon is not necessarily where to slay them. I would, you know, stick somewhere between Fort Pierce and, you know, maybe a little north of Sebastian. And that's about it. But if you know something I don't know, write in the comments. Let us know. Now, chapter 5 is when to fish. You know, you got to fish different times of the day in the warmer months in the summer than you do in the cooler months like the spring and the fall and the winter. In the summer, you can have a really short window of when those fish were going to bite. You know, maybe half hour before the sun comes up, when you first get a little bit of light coming through, you know, you might get some big trout biting then. And then, you know, as the sun's coming up, you might get some big trout then. And then about half hour after the sun's already risen, the bite's going to taper off. And yeah, you can get a few more in the middle of the day here and there. But those areas where you're going to catch trout after trout in the summer, boom, 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 one on every cast, getting a bite every cast, that's probably going to be between, you know, half hour before the sun comes up and, you know, half hour after the sun, you know, has already risen. So that's your kind of window. After that window closes, you know, fish for your snook and your redfish and your tarpon and whatever else. You're not going to be slaying the trout. You're just going to be catching random trout here and there, you know, half hour after the sun comes up. In the winter, you know, you can sleep in. You're not going to want to fish until the fish are live and warmed up a little bit. And the sea trout, you know, they tolerate cold water, but they don't really want to feed until the flats warm up a little bit. So yeah, you don't have to start fishing until about 10 o'clock on a cold winter's day. Maybe a little bit later than that, maybe 11 o'clock. Because, yeah, but the good part of the winter is, you know, you're going to be able to fish the whole day. They're not going to shut down because it's not going to get too hot for them to feed. So winter, you get a big window, and you know, of course the sun's not up as long in the winter, but you're going to have a longer period of time to catch those fish, and you're going to have a longer period of time to find them. And you know, sometimes in the winter, the trout are the only things going to bite. The snook might be shut down because it's too cold for them to bite. The trout and the redfish, they'll still be biting. The tarpon will be shut down if it's too cold. So yeah, you can eliminate tarpon and snook when it's super cold, but you can still catch those trout and you can still catch those redfish even in the dead of the winter. So keep that in mind next time you go fishing in the winter. Let's talk about water clarity. You know, I don't like crystal clear water, but you know, if it is crystal clear, you know, and you're just targeting trout, you might want to drop down to like 20-pound test. You could go down to as little as 15-pound test, but you know, you're going to lose any kind of sizable snook, and you may lose a tarpon or a redfish. So if you're, you know, if you're really targeting just the trophy sea trout, they're not going to chew through your leader, so you can get away with 15, 20-pound tests. Ordinarily, I would say, you know, fish the dirtier water, you know, especially if you're fishing lures. It gives them not so long to look at your presentation. You know, if the water's a little bit dirty, if it's crystal clear, you know, they have a lot longer to check out your lure and maybe say, oh, that's not real. I'm not eating that. So yeah, a little bit of murkier water. You know, if there's mullet muds, that's kind of ideal because the mullet are stirring up the muddy water or making the muds by, you know, feeding on the bottom and stirring up the bottom by feeding. That's an ideal situation. You know, it can get really muddy. If it's super muddy, you're not going to do well because the fish are going to have a hard time finding your lure. They have a hard time feeding when it's super muddy. They have a hard time finding your bait. I mean, they can, but your chances go way down. You got to like drag it right in front of their face before they'll even know it's there. So super muddy water, not ideal. Somewhere, you know, in between crystal clear and super muddy, you know, that's what you want to look for in terms of water clarity. While we're talking about water, I kind of mentioned this before, but trout like moving water, you know, so, you know, they will move around and they will look for moving water. So, you know, if there's a creek, you know, with an oyster bar in it, you know, that's a good spot. There's an island, you know, that has a lot of current going across a point, you know, that's going to be a good spot. Now the snook might be closer to the point than the trout, but, you know, the trout will be around points with moving water too. So check out any kind of points with moving water. That's ideal. Now let's talk about lures. If you've been watching my channel at all, you know I love this Z-Man Minnow Z's 3-inch in this slam shady color. I love this thing. I throw it all around. This is what you saw the 29-inch trout in the beginning of the video, the intro, hit this lure with a pink jig head, not this jig head. But yeah, this is a great lure. You know, if you want to catch numbers of medium to small trout, this is a go-to lure. Trout love this. You know, you get some bigger ones on here, but you know, if I want a bigger trout, I've been doing a lot better on this. This is a DOA cow jerk shad. I'm not sure what this color is. I think I have it in the video where we're fishing. I'm going to do a part 2 of this video. It's going to be kind of a hybrid, this video. It's going to be a little bit of a seminar, and then it's going to be a little bit on the water where you see how I use these lures that I'm talking about. And I think I have the color in there, but it's kind of like a mullet looking color. It's got some sparkles and some flecks in there. But yeah, you want to jerk this thing. You'll see me on the boat. I'm jerking my rod. I'm letting it go down to the bottom. Then I jerk it back up. Then it goes back down. And one trout even jumps out of the water after it hits this thing. I don't know if he's trying to catch it or what happened, but the trout jumped like this far, about this far out of the water. I didn't get it all with my camera, but you're going to see it on the video here in the on the water action. The other lure in the on the water action I used was this voodoo shrimp. I think this is a 3.25. This is original voodoo shrimp, and it's a gold color. Now with the voodoo shrimp, you'll see me, I'm doing straight retrieve in the on the water action, and I'm also like popping it off the bottom, hopping it up and down, hopping it up and down. As you may know, you know, shrimp normally swim like this with the current, or if they're swimming around, you know, they just kind of go straight for the most part. But when they start getting attacked, they'll try to jump out of the water, they'll flick their tail. That's one of their means of defense. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to jerk this thing up in the air, make it look like it's fleeing and afraid of something chasing it, and that attracts the attention of the trout and the other game fish. The other way that the shrimp will get away from predators, it will go down to the bottom. So this jumping up and then going down to the bottom, that imitates what a shrimp does in the wild. So yeah, that's what you want to do. You either want to have it going swimming calmly along on the surface, or you want to pop it up and down off the bottom like it's in trouble and trying to get away and trying to get back down to the bottom. So those are 2 methods of retrieve that I use for these lures. Now let's get to the on the water action. How about that?
Whoa! I got him! That trout jumped out of the water to get this. Unbelievable! Oh my God, this is a huge, huge trout. I hope you can see him. Oh my God, look at the size of this trout. Wow! Holy mackerel, holy trout. Wow, did you see him jump out of the water? Oh man, I hope I can catch him. Wow, this is huge. Stay on there, stay on there. Stay on there, keep them tight. Don't turn, don't turn. Oh man, This is when I need my net. I gotta get my net out of here. Oh, oh, this is a big trout. This is 20 inches for sure. Look at the size of this thing. Oh, wow. I gotta get the net out, or at least try. Oh, I don't know why I didn't have the net out before. Oh boy. Oh boy, I'm gonna walk him around the boat. Wow, this thing's a tank. I'm gonna try to get the net without letting him go. Oh, I got the net. I can't get any slack in him though. Oh, he's spent. He's spent. I just gotta straighten out the net. Oh, don't come off now, Jay. Oh no. Come on. Get him in here. Oh, I need him. Oh, he's so far away. Yes! Wow, look at this trout I got. Oh my God. This is like 4 or 5 pounds. He shot out of the water. I never seen a trout shoot out of the water. Wow. 17, 18, 19, 20. He's pushing 20. He's pushing 21. He's not quite 21. There's one. He's hitting right next to the boat. Whoa. That was freaking awesome. Look at that. Oh, there's another one. Now, is he on there? He's on there. They're staying on there. I gotta be paying attention. I gotta pay attention. They pull drag. It's a decent fish. I'm slow on the trigger and they're swallowing it. Wow, this one's fat too. This one's fat. This one's fat as heck. There's something. Yeah. I think it's another trout. Another trout on the voodoo. Decent, but it's not as big. Ooh, there's another bite. Come on. Come on. Bite it. Ooh, they're biting it. I got one. Yeah, I got to set the hook there. Got to set the hook on it. All right. Voodoo's working. There's another trout. Oh, he came off. Wow. That felt bigger. Definitely felt bigger. Oh, they're biting at the boat. Man, they love the jerk shad. Wow, look at him jumping. Another jumping trout. Another big trout. Wow. He's 20. Another 20. That was like 2 casts in a row. Very aggressive. Super aggressive. Another one. That's another good one. Wow. Look at that. Pulling a little drag. Definitely like 17, 18. Wow, look at that. Woo! Nice. Maybe it's just like something. Yeah. It's another trout on the voodoo. Right, we got the voodoo. There it is. I think I got him this time. I think I finally got him. I think I finally got the trout. Took 6, 8 bites. Yeah. Ooh. That's a good trout. Look at that. That's a good one. Hold. Oh yeah, there's another good one. The good ones are right there. Wow. Oh, they're there. They moved out a little further. I probably drew the whole school towards me. All right. We're on a trout sleigh fest. Oh, one's on. One's on. I didn't even know it. These are not big. But I'm having a blast. Having a blast catching them. Okay, Spoil Island Trout. Here we are. Voodoo Shrimp is producing, as well as the minnows. He's talking to you guys. You just got to play around with the retrieve till you figure out how to get them to stick. And then that could change, you know, at any time. Bring it in a little faster, maybe I could get them to load it up. Stick on. There we go. Another one. Woo, they're getting closer to me. You can see that little blue herons on that. Oh, there was a fish. Whoa, I'm off the board. Oh, that fight. Oh, it's a good snook. Oh, yeah, that's a good snook. Look at that. Oh, my God, it's a huge trout. Look at this. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, I've never seen anything like this. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It looks like a different species. Come on. Come on, Jay. Get him in the boat. On the board. Look at that. Look at that trout. He's got that slam shady on his throat. Look at that. Holy mackerel. He's beautiful. What a beautiful trout. It just keeps going and going and going. Oh my God. Man. Giant. All right.
So now you have my book on how to catch gator trout in the Indian River Lagoon. You know, we went over the methods, we went over the lures, we went over the time of year, the time of day, the currents, the spots to look for, the flats, the islands, the spoil islands, the oyster bars, all kinds of stuff like that. You know, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please share it with one of your buddies. Use the share feature, you know. And if you liked it, please hit the like button and comment. Tell me what your personal best sea trout is. Maybe it's way bigger than mine. I hope it is. And if not, let's keep shooting for the moon. Let's keep trying to get those PBs. And let's keep going. Let's keep fishing. You know, fishing's an adventure. And until that next adventure, Jay out.